which you can spread through your social media so that more people understand about the condition of refugee in Indonesia. So welcome and enjoy this organization. Thank you, Gumi. Back to you.
Thank you, Matika, for those insightful remarks. Before we start the discussion, I would like to give notice that while the session is ongoing, while the speakers is talking, if the participant have questions before we open the Q&A sessions, you guys are allowed to ask away in the chat using the chat. You can ask away the discussion there, or you can also wait until the Q&A session. We will give you guys time to ask the question directly to the speakers. Okay, so without further ado, I will start away with the first speaker, Dr. Leonardo, who will discuss the psychological well-being of refugees and the importance of comprehensive advocacy. Dr. Leonardo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Am I audible to you?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, I will give the floor to you right now.
Okay, thank you. So let me start with sharing my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so thank you very much, Gumi. And my regards to the SUAKA team, Atika, and also Mas Angga, thank you very much, and everyone also Naweed, thank you very much for having me in this wonderful commemoration of the refugee refugee day. So I have this opportunity and this wonderful sharing about the refugee and mental health. My name is Leonardo. I'm from Department of Psychiatry, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Indonesia, Cipto Mangunkusumo National General Referral Hospital, and also from the Community Psychiatry Section, Indonesian Psychiatric Association. So let me start with this wonderful topic with some outline of what we are going to talk within the next 20 minutes. We will have some overview about the refugee. I think we have a robust and profound understanding about what refugees are. But let me help you to understand another perspective from the psychological perspectives, also the humanitarian perspectives, and also cultural perspectives. And hope that having this kind and broad understanding about the perspective of the refugees will have has more clarity to help us to know ourselves, but also to help and understanding about the population of the refugee. So because my background is a psychiatrist, let me start my overview and understanding about the refugees and the psychological perspectives. Um, I think when I ask you who are the refugees, we will have a lot of understanding and definition of our own. If we use the definition of forced displaced people, I could also entitle myself as a refugee because I also moved from my place for looking for a better job in the capital of Indonesia in Jakarta. But apart from that, we can see there is a complexities behind that. We can see that the refugees, there are a lot of things going on. There are dimensions and intersections of the time exposure, but also the exposure of the situation, the hardship, and also the trauma that they had during in their home country, in their place of their origin. But also this kind of process is intertwined within their psychological realm. So whenever a person they had to flee from the country due to the war, conflict, or genocide, they exposed with various actions which is not appropriate, which is not acceptable for their psychological realm. But however, this kind of exposure could be in some extent inherited to the generations over generations, which means that if I exposed to some trauma, my trauma is not only ended in my life, it could end it into my children, my grandchildren, or even my grandchildren. So we could also look into ourselves whether we are currently having the trauma, or maybe we bring back the trauma from our great ancestors. But also we could see that the trauma is also triggered by the situations that could provoke from our surroundings. It could be from the environment, it could be from the people who interacting with us. It also could be provoked by the stressors that we have intrinsically, or something that we have inside of our mind, and then it could accumulate it more and more into our daily life. It could function in our activities, but also it could affecting the way how we perceive ourselves, um, about who we are. Another thing is about the humanitarian perspectives, because I know that, talking about refugees, something that we have to link and to look forward about how we see the human. So, from the study that conducted by Shaheen and Kabir, a lot of issues going on here for the refugees. Something that related with how they being separated from their society and the home society, but also it's related what how they could have access for basic daily support as housing, as food, as clothing. But also it's related with the politics, especially when they have to move to the country, neighboring countries which have different understanding or different policies with their own. But also they could regard it of the security concern, especially people who experience the xenophobia. And last but not least, it's related with the human dignity, about their existence, about their presence as the human being. And then sometimes they asking themselves why we are here, what the purpose of our existence in the here and now, in this location, in this new country, in this new home, in this place which I'm not intended to travel to the place where I'm supposed to go to point A, but now I have to be stranded in point B. So there are a lot of things going on here, but also it never lacking of the issues of how we connected with the people, and when we connect with the people, we also delve into the cultures of our own. We bring when we, especially when travel, we move to one country whenever we are not so ready for that because of the sudden exposure of war, because of the climate change, because of something like spontaneously occurred. We deal with the language, we deal with the food that we used to eat, we deal with the custom, we deal with the how people interact. We also deal on how we understand about our life. And then we bring all this to the new country where some extent they could accept our worldview. We could have some access to the same local food, but sometimes we couldn't access, or if even we couldn't afford that because of the condition. So the dynamic of this moving or from point A to point B, there are a lot of things going on. It could be the adaptation to the new culture, it could be the acculturation to the culture, but also it could be the assimilation to the new culture. However, not everyone could work on this very well. Some they still stick to the culture, some they are struggling on how to adapt, some still don't know how to work on their life, and they cannot move forward, and even they cannot have access for to achieve the kind of skills for adapting to the community. So let me bring some studies that I found, some study about looking at the resilience of the refugees during the COVID-19 pandemic, and looking on how they could be resilient in the community. So this study highlighting on how the people of the refugees in the Rohingya refugees in the Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, how they impacted with the COVID-19, but also how they're struggling their life with limited sources in the resettlement. And these are the things that they're looking to on measuring on how the people there they could cope with the uncertainty, they how they could deal with the food source, how they could deal with the sanitation, because during the COVID-19, sanitation and also water and hygiene is something that ultimate, but also about shelter, healthcare facilities, etc. So this study highlighting that the coping mechanism, when people have to deal with the cultural aspect of their life, when they have to deal with the humanitarian aspect of moving from the country, they have to deal with also all of this. And we can see that water, food, economy, and shelter, I think that's also related with the SDGs. And also it's related with the global mental health action on how to sustain the mental health of the people. So these are the four things that I want to highlight from the study. Four things that that are needed for or to sustain the resilience of the people during the hardship, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic. Firstly, they have to get the access for information and communication to help them to stay updated with the situation, but also in the real setting, they could have access to be updated with their status, right? Are they refugees? Are they asylum seeker? Number two, they have to get access for leadership. Here in the study, they exercise the importance of having local term, maji or something like that. The elderly that they can regards to as the decision maker in the community. Number three is the infrastructure, the importance of having systems that could support them, something that I will talk later. But also here is about the biopsychosocial availability. So the study emphasizes that if we want to advocate or we want to talk about the mental health, we must first talking about the availability of the biopsychosocial system in the community before we could advocate or do something about it. And talking about the mental health, there are a lot of things going on here. But from this study, it is important that the system will be there if we have or we can sustain the access to healthcare services, especially for the refugees where in some countries where they have no access or no support for education or healthcare services, then I think having the access to healthcare care services something that is needed to advocate if they don't have the system in place for supporting the refugees. So while I'm talking or I'm saying, are the refugees or the asylum seeker so vulnerable? So that question could be answered in this graph here. So when you talk about the refugees, we talk about the individuals there and also their complexities on how they perceive their life. But also we have to deal with the institutional settings. Institutional settings here means the country, the home country. It could be also the resettlement, but also it could be the relocation to the NGOs. And when we talk about these three, when it interrelated to one another, and then it will have some effect that could impacting the people where they have their psychological issues, they could have their cultural adaptation process and transition, but also they have to deal with the policy, the national policies in the country, but also the international organization's policy, and then brings them to the vulnerability, especially in some specific populations such as the elderly, but also the children and also the girls or the women population. So in Indonesia so far, this is the challenge here. We haven't yet joined the convene. We have our regulations number 125 in 2016 is about dealing the management of the refugees or asylum seeker. But we haven't yet established a system in place for the refugees how they can sustain their life, how can they have access toward the education, and how can they have access toward all the basic healthcare services for them. So that indicates that apart from waiting for the governments to move and to do something, we can start to do a movement by starting as simple as making a partnership. As we mentioned, and I think as we are aware of the refugees in Indonesia, they are living together, cohabitating with the local population, and I think it's a great benefit to start a partnership. So how to deal that in the terms of the mental health or global mental health perspectives. So essentially what we need is a teamwork. I think it's also communication, which is also related from the study from the Bangladesh and the Cox's Bazar. We also need to identify what kind of intervention that we will do or provide, but this intervention will be initiated based on the assessments that we conducted in advance. But also, again, we need to see the culture, especially for those who come from a different culture, or they are um, have a mixed parents, and then we have to understand how to integrate the systems according with their understanding. But also in general, like the mental health services, we need to establish rapport with the individuals and also the community leader, bring the awareness and also the management. And Indonesia, we have the primary healthcare facilities, we have puskesmas, people with several conditions and psychological conditions. We can create a sustainability planning, which we could integrate with the system, but also the human resources available in that place. So talking about the integrating the mental health in the community, we also need to understand firstly, as the previous outline in the beginning, how to understand and to be culturally aware of the society that we are going to serve. So these are the 7 items that I have tried to summarize about how we can really observe in advance when we design an intervention, such as social ties, intergenerational approach. It's about connectedness. It's about religious worldview. It's about surface utilization, but also on how they cope with the situation. And having this kind of perspective could help us um, creating a good psychiatric or mental health care services. So essentially, because people who suffer from post-traumatic distress or suffering from depression or some suffering for um, anxiety, sometimes the manifestation is not, oh, I'm having this trauma, or I'm having this flashback, or I'm having this kind of reactivity toward this certain situations. But what they come into the physicians or the psychiatrists, they present themselves in terms of the bodily sensations, which we call the idiom of distress, which could vary from person to person. So having this kind of understanding and how the people could manifest their symptoms through the bodily sensations could help us also see the needs beyond than just healthcare services, something that we have to integrate the healthcare services as well as the mental health care services to provide a thorough and also comprehensive healthcare to the refugee. And this, from the picture on your left, we can see the pyramid needs of people with refugees. And we can see here, number one, the top one is clinical services. Other than that, we can see there's psychosocial supports, community supports, but also the basic needs. So at the end, when we see if we can provide the basic needs to the populations, to the refugees, but at the end, we can see that we have to consider on their clinical needs, especially from those affecting to a mental disorder, psychiatric conditions, something like that. And this one on your right, we can see the process on how we can integrate the system. When we talk about system, we should not work it on our own. There are some aspects or strategies that we have to involve. It could be the community, it could be the leadership, it could be social working, it could be the politics, it could be the policymaker, it could be education, it could be also the primary healthcare workers. So we want to create a systems that we want to advocate. We need to involve as many counterparts as possible to make a comprehensive understanding and a comprehensive approach to the society. So from what I have talked before, one of the way as also the SUAKA has given me the topic is how to advocate the needs, because when the system is not there, when the policy is not there, and the only way that we can do is to sound the need of the people on behalf of the people, but also we can advocate on our own on what we need. So in terms of advocating in the mental health, We need to have trust toward the people that we advocating with, or they could have trust to us as the representative of their needs. We need the effective communications. We also have to be patient and empathy given to their situations, given to the hardship that they have, given to the all the limited resources that they have. But also we have to express genuine interest toward them, being flexible because their life. They also have to adjust with the waiting list of having for the new country, but also we appreciate, and at the same time we appreciate how they thrive. We highlight the growth and the change of the people that we serve with, but also a part of the humanitarian action, we show them respect regardless of how severe the situation they have, or how hardly they're being affected by the trauma. We have to make sure and maintain the respect toward the people we serve. We need also to make sure that the system help us to resolve the conflicts. We give them as part of the respect toward their humanity. We give them room to for them to express themselves, and also to being able um, be confident and feel free for them to express themselves and their ideas and thoughts, but also understanding our boundaries because something that is a must for us to help them, but also being open and honest toward them. So uh, I think from this list here we can see that the advocating is not only about sounding their needs, sounding their voices, but also on how to regulate ourselves into what extent that we can help them, but also to highlight the systems and also to highlight the needs that they have. So in terms of advocating of the refugees, especially for their mental health, we need to highlight on the recovery. We have to make sure that when we advocate for the system, or we advocate for an intervention, or we want to advocate for the access for mental health care services, we have to make sure that they have been connected. They have the connectedness, especially in the cultural awareness of the physicians or health workers who will serve them. We also instill hope and optimism toward them. We also make establish their identity, even though they are in a new country, but help them also not to distract or uh, to um, uh, to mix with their who they are, but we help them to know um, their identity and also their be endowed with their new home. But also we help them to find meaning and purpose and empower them from what they have, what they can do amidst the uncertainty. And from this, we transfer this into steps or intervention for preventing the mental health disorders, preventing the suicidal issues because the suicidal issues is very high among the refugees population. But also we design on how to treat in terms of access for medications, especially for those with severe mental disorders. But not only that, we provide them the access for rehabilitation, and I think based on to the primary health services, we promote also for mental health and well-being in the community. So to close, because my title is about well-being, I know when I bring this topic of well-being, we might questioning ourselves: Am I okay now? Am I just doing fine with my situations, with my waiting list? So when we talk about well-being, I think essentially the rights for everyone. It's not only the rights for people, for the refugees, or rights for those who force this place, but it's gonna be the rights for everyone. So in order to maintain the well-being, especially for us as the refugee, these are the things that we have to dealt with. But as I mentioned before, these several aspects that we highlight for the well-being of the refugees, at the end we need to promote them because again, when the refugees, when they have no rights to vote, we don't have rights, political rights to sound their voices, and at the end what we need to prevent them. We don't want them to fall into a mental health disorder or psychiatric conditions. But even though they have trauma, they have been exposed to some hardship in their country, but we help them and protect them so that they will have a better resilience toward the uncertainty. So this is are the steps that you can do in terms of advocating or make some action plans for the wellness of the refugees. This one I adopted from the mental health at workplace, but I think this one is still considerable and related with how we can implement that in in the community setting. Number one is we need to talk freely and without judgment about mental health, about what you what we feel, and then how we perceive about something. Number two, we encourage everyone in our community to find some help if the access is not there, and we sound it for the possibility for them to get access or to get some help. Number three is to help to get access in the organization. I think this is a very important aspect that the access here is not only for the refugees, but also to those who work with the refugees. The burnout could also be experienced by those who working with the refugees. And I think that this is a imperative for the organization also to protect the worker and the NGO's worker so that they can also have a better quality of life by sustaining their mental health. Number four is there is no problem that is too insignificant to talk about, which means everything is matter. Number five is to identify the early signs of stress and mental illness in the community. I think it is a very good sign for us, as simple as asking our how are you, or even reflecting on ourselves, or having this kind of care to our surroundings that will help us also to be more more sensitive to the needs of the others. Number six is we have to ensure the confidentiality because we are dealing with people who experience a really big, really serious trauma, something that we have never exposed before, something that we have never heard before. We could heard how someone sexually abused, someone who physically abused or verbally abused, and we keep the confidentiality. We keep the safe and sound environment for them. And also, if that's possible, because it's cultural related, we could use translators or some leaflets which is translated in the local languages to help the people to understand more on the approach that we propose. And I think the last but not the least is having the understanding about different cultural perceptions will help us also to see people beyond. We are not just labeling them, oh, you have depression, oh, you have schizophrenia, or you have PTSD, but we look beyond that. We look what the cultural aspect that they might be related to. They because therefore we can see also the potentials that they have, what things that they can use that we can empower them to use as the strategic coping mechanism. So to conclude, refugees are mothers, fathers, sisters. The refugees also, some of them could be psychiatrists in their home country. They could be psychologists. They could be doctors, physicians, professors, or whatever. But I think what we need to see beyond, they also have the same rights. They also have the same visions. They also have the rights to be hopeful and to have ambitions toward life. And this is something that sometimes we miss when we look at the refugees. When you look at them, we only see suffering, trauma, and as these pictures, all gloomy things. But we forget beyond this gloomy thing, there's a hope and a light in them. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I'm sorry if I missed my time. So yeah, I stop here and yeah, get back to Gumi. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Leo, for your presentation. It is very insightful, and I'm sure everyone here is really grateful for that presentation of yours. Before we move forwards, I would like to remind everyone here that if you guys have any questions that you guys wanted to ask regarding this topic, you guys can use the column sections, the chat sections where you guys can type where your questions, and I will read it during the Q&A sessions. Okay, so now we'll move on to our next speaker. Next, we have Mr. Naweed Aieen, who will share their experience and insight on education and empowerment initiative within the refugee community. Mr. Naweed, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon, Gumit. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible. The floor is yours. You can start away.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ibu Atika and Sister Gumit, Brother Anga, and all stakeholders in SUAKA for facilitating this platform to have the chance to raise the voice and advocate. And thank you, Dr. For the very informative materials that you have prepared and provided for us. So I learned a lot, and I'm sure that everyone benefits in our call as well as in our live stream on YouTube, if I'm correct. This is Naweed Aieen, originally from Afghanistan. I studied international law, and I used to work as a journalism and TV news presenter. Due to so many reasons, I and my family traveled to Indonesia on 2015. Since then, we hold UNHCR ID, and during the past 9 years, we survived in Indonesia. When I arrived here in the community, I realized that there are 3 durable solutions for the refugees, which is voluntary repatriation. That was not possible for me. I'm just talking about myself shortly, so it depends to all those thousands of asylum seekers and refugees who are residing in Indonesia. That voluntary repatriation was not possible because the life of asylum seekers and refugees who flee the country are at risk, and they cannot return back, unfortunately. And the second durable solution was the local integration. Since Indonesia is not a signatory for the 1951 Convention and a protocol after that, it is not possible for them to have the same rights as cities of Indonesia. And the third durable solution, which is resettlement, is the only possible solution from refugees and asylum seekers' perspective. But this long stay in a transit country, while this transit country is not the signatory for that convention and cannot fulfill the rights of an asylum seeker and a refugee due to law, regulations, policies, is not easy. I'm talking as an asylum seeker, as a refugee, from my own perspective. Let's remember that refugees and asylum seekers are those peace seeker people, those who face persecution, injustice, and so many other similar negative words in their homeland, in their place they born. That's why they had to flee. They still have many challenges. I don't one by one by details on those challenges, but those challenges caused our community to lose 16 young people among these refugees who committed suicide on themselves. that was a tragedy. At the moment, I can say that there are so many people who are suffering similar kind of diseases, mental health, trauma, and those challenges. To return back after my arrival in Indonesia, and I knew that refugees are not permitted to have a job, to work, to have an income, very limited access to education. That's why I and a group of my friends we thought and we gathered together and we spoke about what we can do for the community as a frontliner, as a refugee, as an asylum seeker, to solve a part of this challenge, to come over some gaps and to fulfill that. Then we realized that education is one of the top demands of the community, especially for the children, for youth. Let's imagine that if our children, all these friends who are in the call, if our children is 10 years old and we arrive in a transit country and that child is far away from education for 10 years, for more than 10 years, after getting resettlement or returning back to the homeland or wherever, what will happen with that child, with their family, with the community? That child will be older, 20 years old, during those period of time that he or she has been stuck in a transit country while no right to education.
Okay, I think Mr. Naweed have an unstable connection, so we'll wait for a few minutes. Let me contact him for a moment.
Fortunately, by help of our refugee friends in the local community, that we do highly appreciate so many positive and green lights that we have got from our friends in the local community, we could establish an education center or a refugee school on 2017. By passage of time, fortunately, that school
Mr. Naweed, can you hear me? Am I audible for you, Mr. Naweed?
time, based on the communities, we started to work on another educational project, which was a kindergarten and primary school. I just shared the video with our moderator and brother Anga, and I'd like to ask you guys kindly that please play that video. Let's watch that. It shows how we could change a useless place to a school for refugees. And we emplaced children, kids who have no right to go to the local kindergarten or primary school in that area, in that place, and we call that CDC, or Care the Displaced Children. So let's watch the video and let's come back so we have more to share with you guys.
What does education mean to you?
Education means knowledge, and knowledge is everything. For example, knowledge means good life, good family, and good payment.
Education is something that can invest your future and having good job and having the life that you wanted.
Education is important because education improves our brain. Education makes your dream come true. Education helps you how to read.
What do you want to become in the future?
I want to become a scientist in the future because I want to know everything and I want to change the world.
I want to become a professional footballer because I want to make my parents proud of me.
I want to become in the future a doctor because I like helping people.
A policeman because I want to save the people.
Yes, thank you very much for being patient and watching the video. We believe that building the streets, building cities, building high buildings are easier than shaping a child's character. And we believe that it's not easy in a transit country where you have so many restrictions to facilitate and of refugee children. How do we keep the world and environment of being refugee, stateless, asylum seeking, and those so many negative words to keep the children away and leave them to be in their own world. We know what's going on with the forcibly displaced people, but they have to pass away to learn. Hereby, I'd like to, I prepared a topic and I put myself in the state of my Indonesian friend, and I'm just reading this topic as an Indonesian as far as we are in this local community. As we gather here today, I stand before you to shed light on pressing issue that demands our attention and compassion. The well-being of refugees in Indonesia in a world marred by conflict, persecution, and displacement. It is incumbent upon us to extend a helping hand to those who have been forced to flee their homes in search of safety and security. Indonesia, with its rich cultural tapestry and spirit of unity, has become a temporary home to thousands of refugees from various parts of the world, yet amidst the diversity of our nation. These individuals often claims that and first, we must recognize the unique circumstances that have led these individuals to seek refuge on our shores. Whether fleeing war, violence, or persecution, each refugee carries with them a story of resilience and survival. It is our duty to listen to their voices, to understand their experiences, and to offer them the support they need to rebuild their lives with dignity and hope. Central to the empowerment of refugees is the assurance of their well-being across all phases of life. This encompasses not only access to basic necessities such as food, shelter, and healthcare, but also the provision of education, psychosocial support, and opportunities for livelihoods. Education in particular holds the key to unlocking the potential of refugees' children and youth, offering them a pathway to a brighter future and the chance to contribute positively to the society. Furthermore, we must address the mental health needs of refugees, many of whom have endured unimaginable trauma and loss. By providing trauma-informed care and psychosocial support, we can help them heal from their past experiences and cultivate resilience in the face of adversity. Equally important is the promotion of economic empowerment among refugees, enabling them to become self-reliant and active participants in their communities by fostering an environment that facilitates their integration into the workforce and internship. We can harness the talents and skills they bring, enriching our society in the process. However, achieving the comprehensive well-being of refugees in Indonesia requires more than just goodwill. It demands collective action and solidarity from all sectors of society, governments, non-governmental organizations, civil society, and local communities must come together in partnership to provide holistic support to refugees and ensure their rights are upheld. In conclusion, let me reaffirm our commitment to the well-being of refugees in Indonesia and beyond. Let us stand in solidarity with those who have been forced to flee their homes, offering them compassion, support, and hope for a better tomorrow. For in uplifting the most vulnerable among us, we uphold the values of humanity and justice that bind us together as a global community. So just I put myself in place of my Indonesian friend, and just I prepared this and wanted to share with you. I think I'm already over time. Thank you for listening to me, and I'll be more than happy to answer if there is any question. Back to you, Sister Gumi.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Naweed, for your insightful presentation. And also thank you for sharing that video with us. It is definitely giving us more insight about the refugee communities and also the education field. And now we have time for some question and answers for those of you guys who are here and wanted to ask about this topic. You guys can ask away with the chat sections, or you guys can also use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting. I will wait for the questions for a moment before we start. Okay, once again, I would like to remind everyone that now we are on the question and answer sessions. If you guys have any questions regarding the presentation that already been done, you guys can ask away during this session. Okay, maybe while waiting for the other participants to ask, here we have Kanga. Perhaps you have any comments or questions regarding the presentations earlier?
Yeah, thank you, Gumi. Yeah, while waiting for the others, just want to acknowledge the great presentations that Mas Leonardo and also Brother Nawid has shared with us. It was very insightful and also shows a very great points that we would need to advocate further and also to take notes all together, because when we are talking about refugee protection issues, there are many stakeholders that are um, complicit in a way that we can collaborate together to advocate and also to create more better situations. So in line with that, I just want to ask for both of your opinions about the importance of local and refugee communities collaborations in these regards, and what are the importance of this kind of collaborations for the benefits of the community empowerment, and whether both of you have any best practices on these regards that can be shared with us, and maybe there are some things that we can do all together after this, and there are some things that needs to be take notes of to improve our collaborations, for example. So yeah, I would like to ask to Mas Leonardo and also Brother Nawid regarding this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kanga, for the questions. Perhaps it can be answered right away.
Okay, I think let me start, and I think maybe Brother Nawit can make it can conclude it in a perfect way. But yeah, I think let me answer this. Thank you, Masanga, for very intriguing questions that you gave to us to look beyond. And I think talking about the community partnership, let me bring or try to answer these questions in the perspective of the public health perspective. As I mentioned before, everyone, not only the refugees, they are at risk for having mental disorders, right? So this is what we see based on their prior exposure and also the complexity for the situations. But we just don't stop at that. We look beyond on how the things that we can propose, that is to promote and to prevent. So this is the basic things that we can do to help the society and the community. So I think I don't have many experiences as Nawid has done before, and I think what the CDC has um, executed is a wonderful and a beautiful example on how we can work together. But I think in terms of the collaboration with the community, we can do as simple as I think what they need is first is the health, and second is the education. From education, I think now we could elaborate more on that because the you have example on how you have implemented so far. But I want to highlight on the health for sure. So when we talk about the collaboration and the partnership with the health, we understand that everyone has their vulnerability for developing psychiatric conditions, and then from that we can see what things that we can do. Of course, the intervention that we can provide to the society comprises of the pharmacological or the medication, or non-pharmacological, or something that we could say the psychosocial intervention. So to conduct either one, either the medications or the psychosocial interventions or promoting the resilience, we will not be able to do it by ourselves. For example, let me say, for example, I have a clinic and I want to do a community outreach in Bogor, for example. If I have this, maybe I have the resources, I have the health workers, I have the supplies, I have everything to procure. However, if I don't have access to the community who I'm going to serve, then there will be a gap of my service. I will not be able to deliver it to the beneficiary. So as simple as that, this is a very basic example on how we have to collaborate. But I think beyond than that, even in the basic healthcare services, like for example, we want to promote for non-communicable disease, or we want to promote the mental health for all, for example, we need to implement and to collaborate with the society. Why? Because we don't, as the health workers, we don't have enough knowledge on how the condition in the real setting. Those who are expert in the real settings are those who living with the society. Those who are experts are those who have the daily basis exposure with the situations. So I think when you talk about the refugees and the intervention with the refugees, having this partnership or community engagement is something that is a must and something that is mandatory, especially if we want to do something or we want to promote or giving something some kind of intervention to the society. And I think based on the practice of some countries, for example, in the United States, some states, like example for Arizona or I think Virginia, they are open also for the refugees. They execute the certain policies, but I think there's interstate policies in the states of the United States that they encourage, they open for the possibilities for the refugees who resettled in their state to have access to work and has access to education. But I think it differs from each state. But I think from what we can learn from other countries is about the evidence. We need, especially we want to deal with the policymaker, we want to deal with the higher level or higher ups of Indonesian. We need research, we need data that we can analyze and we can present them as this is what we have in the real setting and this is what we need to do. Therefore, a need assessment is essentially the most important thing. So I think that's all I can say. Maybe Brother Naweed, you can add more on that.
Thank you for the comprehensive explanation, Dr. Leonardo, brother. The doctors should be this much kind. And thank you, Brother Anga, for raising up this question. To be honest, as a refugee, as an asylum seeker, the bold and the top point, the top demand of our community is a durable solution. I'm talking beyond education or beyond having home school opportunities for refugees in Indonesia. The top demand is resettlement. Why resettlement? Because those two other solutions are not applicable. The only solution, which is resettlement, is on the top of the refugee and asylum seekers agenda. At the same time, when we talk about resettlement, the good news, which are depending to the resettlement issues, would be very much supportive for the mental health of the community. I do remember a few years ago, the community got a news from the units here, representatives who were coming to Bugur area to JRS, Jesuit Refugee Service, and collected and informed community to come here. So we have a kind of speak with you. When we were there, we got a news that the resettlement chance is 0 for you. And the priority goes for those who are suffering sickness or diseases, but that priority chance is 1%. But for you guys who are healthy and who has no any sickness, any problem, the chance is 0 for you. We will provide stories so you can sign an IO to help you be back to your homeland. We will go for further procedure and we will pay the cost for the transportation. The community representatives were there and the UNHCR representatives asked us to spread this news to the community, for the parents, for the students, but we didn't do that. We didn't do that, but it happened because the people just got info from mouth to mouth and from other friends. So finally, that caused a disappointment for the community. And that caused so many mental health problems for the community. What I try to saying is to give good news for the community, to give them hope, to support them, to show them a green future, to support them, to inject them energy with positive words. That's why resettlement, talking about resettlement and bringing some new news about resettlement would be very much supportive. I, as a refugee community activist with a group of my friends, are working on finding solutions for resettlement through skill visa, through community sponsorship programs, through group of five, through SAW in Canada, Australia. I would like to kindly request SUAKA and other side organizations to help us in this field, to advocate, to seek for perfect options and stand with us to get taxi. Fortunately, a few refugees could get resettled through Skills Up, TBB, or Talent Beyond Boundaries, a group of five in Canada, SAW community. So these are the ways that beside the humanitarian visa, it could be supportive for the community. When we have 20 young students who are celebrating their 12th or high school graduation within the next few days, if we help each other to find a sponsorship for them to get resettled through sponsorship, to continue their education at the same time to reach in a safe land where they can have their basic human rights at least. That would be very helpful. So those are the suggestions that I could share so far. And if there is any other question, I'm still here to answer that. Brother Ranga, other colleagues. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Naweed, and also Dr. Leonardo. Here we have Hassan, who has raised their hand, but first, I have a question that already been sent to me through personal chat. This one is for Dr. Leonardo. They wanted to ask whether or not psychological first aid is suitable to give out to refugee victim of disaster after they crossing the ocean, noting that usually for internal displaced person, PFA is given to them. So whether this is suitable for refugee victim of disaster.
Okay, thank you very much, Gumi, for the questions about the PFA. So essentially, the principle of the PFA is like when we have a wound, and then what the first things that we want to help to help the wound. We want to stop the bleeding. We want to put some antibiotics in order to get out from the infections. So that is the very basic principles of what the psychological first aid means. So let's say from the case, and thank you very much for the wonderful questions. And I think it's a very related and applicative and in what the refugees could experience prior to their traveling to the transiting countries or to the home countries. So in that case, when everyone or somebody was in the oceans for over a month or a couple of weeks, they might also suffering from some kind of hardship, maybe lack of food, lack of water. They may be dehydrated because of the exposure of direct exposure to the sun. They might also still in the fear of being chased by the people who persecute them, or they might also be in fear of being persecuted by the local police. That may arrest them because they came into the country without a proper paper or identification. So based on that, they also I could understand that they also are in the realm of the fear and anxious about whether I will be safe or not during this the travel in the oceans. So basically, it is what they have is kind of exposed to. I couldn't say it's just a trauma, but sometimes some kind of a hardship. However, this kind of hardship could turn into a traumatic experience if they associate that kind of situations with a burst of emotions, and they associate that with this kind of hardship, and then it's stored into their subconscious and unconscious, and then it's represented again in the here and now in the form of flashback or dreams. So it's a good question that you ask whether PFA is feasible. I could say yes, but maybe it's based on person to person and their psychological condition, based on how deep the trauma affect their psychological life, and also the complexities of the trauma, whether they have certain aspects other than that, whether they also being persecuted in their country, whether they also seen how people being attacked, being shot, or any kind of situations that is traumatic to them. But I could say, like the basic principle is like when we have a wound, we need to stop the bleeding. So whether that kind of help is not really helpful for them in the long run, but at least we comfort them, because I think everyone who is stressful, everyone who is frustrating, whether they're refugees or not, whether they're displaced people or not, whether they're asylum seekers or not, we everyone they have the rights to be sued. They need a very good life. They need a proper life. They need to be happy. They also have the rights to cheer and to embrace the life. And that's what everyone could have, and something that they could fight for. And that's the message of having the psychological first aid. And I think there is a intervention from WHO, is what we call is doing what matters in time of distress or some in times of difficulties. I think there's a very simple techniques on how to be mindful with what you have, how to find meaning with what you have. I think there's follow-up sessions that we can do after the PFA, and then we can help them to find meaning. But I think essentially PFA is something that not only a right indication for everyone, but I could say it's the right for everyone to have their, improved quality of life. So I hope that answers the questions.
Okay, thank you, doctor, for your answer. And if there's any follow-up question regarding the answer, I will notify you. And for now, Mr. Hassan, you can ask away your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Leonardo, the speakers. Thanks, SUAKA, and everyone who helped them to have this session. I will start with this, that everyone got active from the end. From the end. We did not do these things from the beginning to stop this trauma, to stop this, to empower the people. But we started now after 10 or 11 years, after we lost 24 of us. We started now, SUAKA or any other partners, they now had these sessions to empower the people. You can see that there are more than 12,000 refugees, around 13,000 refugees. How many people joined this session? This shows that the interest, the topic, the title of the topic of today's session itself represents something that only 4 or 5 refugees are interested to join this session. Why? What Dr. Leonardo said was all true, and I accept him, and I appreciate. He mentioned about there must be honesty, openness, empathy, trust, these things. These are now, after 11 years, that all the people, they're their illness, their mental health illness is now in a high level, in a high degree. These are not working for them. And I'm from these people. I remain with these people, always among these people. Now, when I told these people about today's title, they said these things are useless. This is a waste of time. This should have been done 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, when the people got here after maybe 2-3 weeks. They could do it because of the way that came, the things that happened to them in Afghanistan or back in their countries. When they arrived here, these things should have been done for them at that time, not now that they are staying 11 years, 12 years here. Now we started doing these things. No, it is time now to end this waiting, to end this limbo, 12 years limbo, with one of those 3 durable solutions: resettlement, local integration, or repatriation. There is no other cure for them. There is no other treatment for them. No painkiller is working for them, because only it is a painkiller for a moment. I know many of them are using now this very dangerous pills. I know many of them. These are not working now. Please, as Dr. Leonardo said, that the things that mentioned there, honesty, empathy, these are good things, but try to find the solution. One of those three. And what Mr. Naweed showed, the film, those are for kids. Those things are for the people whose families are here with them, whose children are with them, not for the people who are far from their kids. When I came here, my youngest kid was less than 2 years. Now she is more than, it's in her 11 years. I am far from her for 9 years now. 10 years from my wife, from my parents. Nothing, no pills, no injection, no vaccine can cure me. Do not waste your time, Mr. SUAKA. Do not waste your time for these things. Do not waste the other partners' time for these things. Please, as Mr. Naweed mentioned, that we went to UNHCR office. UNHCR used in 2021 when people were protesting in front of UNHCR office. UNHCR used a fake hope for them and called some people so that not to protest, to stop protesting, demonstration, told them that you are shortlisted. They were called in 2021, but they are still here. After 2.5 years, they are still waiting for that. It was a fake hope. The consequence of that fake hope is now 150% worse than if UNHCR did not tell them that you are shortlisted. Please, if there is any legal way, pressurize the stakeholders to find the solution, the root cause of the solution, not only on the branches. Not only the branches. Yes, we can. When I came here in 2016, I started online classes, taking online classes. I am now a programmer here. It's only from Indonesia. I got it in Indonesia. I took 5 semesters of journalism and also international law when I was about to need it in 2020. Those are good things, but not the solution. Because you believe it or not, these things cannot cure these people now. Cannot cure. These things cannot give their parents to them. This is their right. They cannot give them their wives to them. This is their right. They cannot give their children to them. Their rights. Yes, Mr. Naweed is here with his family. It's good for him. He's a teacher. He's doing his job. His wife is with him. His children is with him. What else? Nothing. He will go one day. What about others? What about others? What about my children that now she is not believing her mother? When she asks from her mother that says that when my father will come, in our own Persian says awal khuda. It is awal khuda means inshallah. In Persian, in Indonesian it's inshallah. Inshallah will come. But she says, don't say awal khuda. Don't say inshallah because it will get late. These are these, please. I just kindly request you to not waste the time and energy, and also if there is some costs on these things, try to do something positive and useful. Thank you so much. I don't have any question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hassan, for your feedback. That is definitely will be taken into consideration. And is there any response from Dr. Leo or Mr. Naweed regarding the feedback itself? Okay, if there's no response for it.
Okay, maybe just short answer. Yeah, so thank you very much, Brother Hassan, for raising these things. And I think the questions why now is always we sound when everything seems too late. So I think it's a good point perspective that you bring. If we could bring this kind of topic back in 7 years ago or 10 years ago, maybe the situation will change. So this is something that maybe come out of the desperation or frustrations because of the situations that we're gonna change. But I also want to highlight and also invite all of us also to see if we start in today, these occasions, let's see what will happen in the next 10 or 7 years in the future. Because maybe even though we see this is a small event, maybe only a few people attended in these sessions, but we'll never know something will happen. So as you mentioned, we'll never know too when we will move to the to the new country, something like that. But don't forget that you also have the rights to see and to expect something that is positive, that maybe now we never know, but we will never know to something good will happen to us. We will never know to something bad will happen to us. So just to make yourself also balanced. I know that waiting for years out of uncertainty, where you never know whether you can move by yourself or you can bring your family back to the new country, is something that is scary. But we accept that as part of our humanity, because we share this kind of uncertainty. We also share this feeling of insecurity, of not knowing the exact time. But in the meantime, let's never stop, make a hope. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Leo, for the response. And now we'll move on for the last questions. I have received the question from YouTube. Okay, so this one is for Dr. Leo. They wanted to know how important it is good relation with the local community also plays in nurturing well-being for refugee. Okay, you can answer straight away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if you attended with my presentation, I bring a study from the Bangladesh in Cox's Bazar to the Rohingya refugees. So they also address on how the people could survive during the COVID-19. So we know that the COVID-19, there is a strict social interaction, there is a strict regulations how to maintain the hygiene and everything like that. But can you imagine in such a very small, limited settlement, if you haven't seen the Cox's Bazar, you can imagine the difficulty and having a proper adequate access for sanitation is a luxury there because not everyone could have access there. So what they do in that study is they try to make a micro environment. For example, if they have supply of the money and then they make a microsystem in the community to circulate the money so that they can do small trade, they can afford something, but also they in the system of the community in the society they feel that they're empowered, even though they are not empowered to control the community outside of them. At least they have the power or the control over the people who are this with the same conditions among the refugees. But I think still for me personally, I'm not talking from the scientifically perspective, but on my personal perspective, as we also part of the community, even as the refugees, you may consider, oh, we are separated from the society in the new country, but still you are also the part of the society and the refugees. So having that kind of awareness, having that kind of understanding will empower you that even though you are not really part of the community for now, but you are also the part of the community. And I think having this kind of awareness will help you to broaden your understanding on some strategies that you can do. Remember, maybe it's not only because people do not care about the refugees. It's not just because maybe they don't know what is going on. If we could sound what the situation, the hardship that you have, sharing also making like storytelling, bringing up your stories, bring up the story of how you survive, how you are being resilient as the refugees. You know, it could empower not only for among refugees, but it also could empower for those who are also struggling, those who are also forced displaced because of the climate change, those who are also forced displaced because of the natural catastrophe. So I think that's kind of the ways that we can do, as a society, that we can impact to the society of the world. As Naweed mentioned, that we are also the global citizen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Leo, for your answer. And actually, there's one more questions, but because we're running out of time, so unfortunately, we have to cut it down to that one last question. So before we end today's session, let me give a quick summary of today's discussion. Is that the first one, when we're talking about the refugee well-being itself, it is influenced by both individuals and also institutional settings, which affect their vulnerabilities. And also integrating mental health into the community involves addressing social ties, connectedness, religious worldwide, and also many more. And then for the topic of advocacy itself, it requires trust in individuals before organizations. And also we have to have empathy and show our genuine interest regarding their life. And then also from the CDC itself, we have shown the amazing videos about the work that CDC have done for the last few years. It is heartening to hear about the initiative that CDC has been done, and that they are addressing the challenges faced by the refugee itself in Indonesia, particularly regarding education, noting that education itself is not only a fundamental human right, but also a critical tool for empowerment and also integration into society. And I think that concludes our discussions. And if there's any further questions regarding today's discussion or topic relating to the refugee itself, SUAKA will always open up regarding your question and also your concern. You guys can open our website or our social media. We are open to be connected every day. So please do contact us if you guys have any questions, anything regarding this topic itself. And for now, I would like to say thank you for both our speakers who have been sharing insightful knowledge throughout the day. I hope that it went beyond your expectations. I hope that in the future we can also open for more collaboration, and I hope that the participant will get the knowledge that they needed. And once again, thank you everyone for joining today's meeting. And I hope to see you guys real soon in other events. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you for
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a good day. Thank you for hosting
Thank
the
you,
meeting.